Welcome back to another episode of Trampled Underfoot podcast. What's going on, Mark? Everybody?
Oh, you're doing the DJ voice now. The boss Jockfoot, the boss sounds from the boss list of the boss 30 that your boss made you play.
So,
Old
what's
George
going on?
Carlin routine. Oh man, just chilling. It's been a heck of a week trying to get Christmas presents done, trying to get a bunch of projects finished and everything. I'm about not quite a third of the way there. And but start early, stay late, and see it through. My problem is waiting on parts.
Mhm.
I hate that. I'm waiting on some little stainless steel screws. That's all I'm waiting on. That's all I need. And I won't get here till Friday, damn it. So, oh well.
I mean, hell, that's
Talk about a first world problem.
yeah. That you can. There's an endless supply of things that you haven't even thought of, that I haven't even thought of, that I may or may not need or may not like, that are available, but we might have to wait a couple of days
Yeah,
to
because
get
they're
them.
not available locally. And I have looked. I have
Wow.
looked. Now, let me, I know this is apropos of absolutely nothing. Okay. But here's the thing, when I go into a hardware store or the big box store or whatever, I find almost, but not quite exactly what I don't need. All right. And somebody has always got an excuse. They've always got a reason why I should settle for what they have instead of what I want.
Hmm.
Like these stainless steel screws that I'm waiting on. I want button head stainless steel wood screws. And everywhere I went, they're like, oh, well, we've got sheet metal screws. And the difference between a sheet metal screw and a wood screw is one thread per inch, right?
Okay.
Okay, let me explain something to you, son. I've been working with wood for 50 plus years. I know the difference between a sheet metal screw and a wood screw. I didn't ask you for sheet metal screws. I asked you for wood screws. Do you have them? Well, no, we don't have them. Thank you. That's all you needed to tell me. You know,
Damn, you're sounding like a grumpy old guy now.
that's exactly what I'm becoming. And people are forcing me to become that. It's just, don't tell me what you want to sell me. Tell me if you have what I'm looking for. That's all I want. You know, it's a, no, sorry, we don't have those in stainless steel. Okay, thanks. And then I'll be on my merry way. Yeah.
Yeah, I
But
mean, he doesn't know what he doesn't know about other
no,
people.
and you're right, absolutely right. That's why I don't get upset or upshook. I just say, okay, yeah, I've played this game before. I'm not asking for sheet metal screws. I can see those are right there and I know the difference, but that's not what I want. This is what I want. Do you have that? No. Okay, thank you. That's all I needed to know.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I'm looking for a wristwatch. Stop trying to sell me a grandfather clock. I don't care if they're on sale. They're both useful items, but they're not exactly interchangeable now, are they? So,
Well, this is a version of what I've mentioned before when I used to work in the mall back in the early 90s.
mhm,
I worked at a store called Lecter's
mhm.
Housewares and such. And I was working there. I became assistant manager, by the way. That was quite the feat for a 17-year-old.
Hey,
Um, I got the keys to open and close that I would
yeah,
take home. So that's a big deal.
yeah,
I think I got like 10 or 15 cents raise. And I tried to argue the point with the lady when I did the interview for my they needed a they needed a barely functional human being to do the job.
yeah.
And I was young and obviously without the experience, and I sat and did the interview, and they were gonna and I wanted to push up the few cents that they were gonna increase to double what it was.
Mhm.
But it was only cents. If you think about it,
Yeah,
in the context of everything thinking now, she should have gone ahead. Well, we argued the point back and forth, but I didn't have the skills
mhm.
to lay it on the table right enough to perhaps compensate and get my way.
Hmm.
Because I'm gonna do the job. You might as well, get me that. It's gonna make me happy, so I perform better. It's not a lot of money. It's not like we're gonna go out of a, but whatever. That's not the point. So I was doing that, and one day a lady comes in, and I say to her, "Hello, ma'am. How can I help you?" And she says, "No me hables en inglés. Habla español.
Hmm.
Don't talk to me in English. Talk to me in Spanish." I said, "Oh, I'm sorry," and I spoke to her in Spanish. I said, "Oh, okay." Then that same day, another lady comes in, and I say to her, "Hola, cómo estás? Good, puedo ayudarte?" And she looked at me and she says, "I don't speak Spanish. Talk to me in English." And like I was like, "Oh well, crap! You can't win one way or the other
Yeah.
now." So we can't second guess what's coming our way,
No, you can't.
even when we adjust for previous error.
Hmm.
But you can never satisfy human beings, because the variable is anything goes.
Well, in the casino, I didn't really have that much of a language barrier. I didn't have that much language issue, but I learned early on to just smile, nod, and acknowledge their presence.
Yeah,
If I knew them, I would greet them. If I didn't, just smile, nod, and let them speak first. Then I know which language they prefer.
yeah, but you had experience. You were already probably like
Mhm.
an adult.
Oh yeah, I was in my 40s. So yeah,
I
but
was,
yeah, I get it. I do get it. When you're young, it's like damned if
and
you
I
do,
didn't have
damned if
any.
you don't.
I didn't have any judgment calls either
Hmm.
on what people. I really didn't have much of that judgment call of what people may or may not be in
Yeah.
terms of cultural this or that. I had no, because when you grow up in Miami, it's sort of like
Hmm.
just a big cauldron of all
Yeah.
sorts of. So you're not really in turn in in that sort of mindset.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, so we don't, so that young kid of that you, who knows, in his mind, according to all
Well,
the years up to the point where
okay.
you came across him, who
Hmm.
knows what the hell's going on in that little
No,
little steel cauldron of a brain.
the sad part is one of them was a young kid. The other one was in his 40s.
Well, I mean, you can't.
And it's funny because and that's what tickles me about this whole thing. Part of me thinks it's sad, part of me thinks it's funny. It's they all honestly think they have some information you are just completely and totally unaware of.
Mhm.
Like, well, okay, well, let me school this guy.
Oh yeah,
Uh, and it's like, boy, I got shoes older than you are. Don't even try it with me, okay? I've
that
been
hap-
around the block. I helped pave the son of a gun, okay?
oh yeah. It's like trying to
So,
tell your old man a couple of things about knowledge and such. No
mhm.
matter, because I've thought about this in terms. You're never gonna beat your old man at, because number one, he's iconic to you in a general sense, in a
Mhm.
specific way. It may vary from family to family, but he's
Yeah,
still the patriarch
yeah.
of the group. You're never going to, even when you're an adult. But I have thought about that, and I've thought to myself,
Mhm.
I'm still, like a kid compared to the age that my father was. So imagine all the knowledge he would have gained, for
Yes.
better or worse.
Yeah.
You learn from the hits and you learn from the successes. So you learn regardless.
Yeah.
So there's no
Well,
way that one could, although I may have some idea on something like comic books,
yeah.
but in a general way,
But
we
when
never
you're
beat a parent.
talking about doing something like this, like when I was fairly young, I worked at a layaway warehouse. And when we weren't actually, hey, SDM Custom Woodworking, haven't seen him around in a while. I want to get back to Rick's point here a minute ago, but just in saying, working for the layaway warehouse, when I wasn't in the warehouse, I was out on the floor stocking shelves and everything in the outdoor section. And somebody would come and they would talk to me. They'd say, do you have this, this, and this? And if things didn't add up, I would ask them, well, what are you attempting to do? Well, I want to do this and I want to do that. Oh, okay. Well, right over here. That's big,
Yeah.
because I mean, not everybody wants things that are connected with one another. I mean,
Yeah.
if you want a t-shirt and a lawn chair, that doesn't mean you're going to go lay out on the beach. So they may or may not be even connected, but there are more diplomatic ways of putting it.
Oh,
Is all I was getting at.
and before you go to what Rick was, I just want to add one thing in terms of this Home Depot sort of
Hmm.
world and
Hmm.
knowledge and or lack thereof and such.
Hmm.
The difference between a young kid and you run across them all the time. Obviously, you
Hmm.
did, and I have too. And believe me, you
Oh
can
yeah.
go down a wild goose chase going around Home Depot trying to figure it out because they don't know what the hell's going on. But there was this one guy in Home Depot that reminded me of the old people from back in the day in terms of Sweetwater's local hardware. Because what
Yeah.
people would do is you'd walk in and you'd say, "Well, I have this problem," and
Yeah.
they'd go around the store because it was a small store, and they'd pick stuff up and they put it down. And this is what they'd say: "Okay, so you could do this,
Hmm.
or you could do this. These are their two options. Now,
Hmm.
these are the prices for this. So these are your
Right.
options." They'd
Right.
set it all up for you and be like, "Holy!" And well, that Home Depot guy used to do the same thing, but these are older guys
Yeah.
with a set
And
experience in their back pocket.
I got a lot of respect for those people. But that's those people are the exception. I'm talking about the folks who hear what you say, understand what you say, know they don't have it, and then try to sell you something else. Those are the
Yeah,
people I have a problem with.
yeah,
I need tires for my car. I don't want to talk about seat covers. Forget about your seat covers. I need tires. Do you have them? No. Just say that to begin with. If I'm in the market for seat covers, I know where to go. You know.
yeah. There's no,
So,
there's no. At least for me, and I'm gonna safely assume, although you can correct me, and or for you, there's no throughout your day journey that you're gonna run across that one wagon with the
mhm,
snake oil salesman saying this potion will do such and such, and it's
mhm.
such a great deal that you can't help but spit over some
Yeah.
money so you can acquire. I don't care what people are selling. I'm gonna say no,
Mhm.
and I'm gonna double down with no. I don't want anything from. I don't want nothing at all. All now, when I do want
But-
something, it's because I've figured it out and I want it. Now it's
right.
different if you want like a little lollipop or something. That's different.
But
But
if to take from your name right there, if you go down to Publix with your heart set on clam chowder, you don't want them standing there telling you about the virtues of vegetable beef. You want your clam chowder.
you know why I wrote that though?
Uh,
I realized that um that my clam chowder escapade
mhm.
for a year and a half to 2 years um made me gain a lot of weight. I did the
Well,
calculation, and prior to clam chowder I was fine. Post clam chowder, yeah, problem.
so you have two eras of Eloy. You have PC and AC, pre chowder and after chowder. I could say post chowder, but PC and PC is too confusing. What Rick was saying here, that's part of why Amazon and other internet suppliers are putting big boxes out of business.
Mhm.
I don't think they're putting the big boxes out of business because I think the big boxes will do just fine. Because for every guy who doesn't want those screws, there are 15 other guys who will gladly take them and leave. But that's why these smaller suppliers who sell through Amazon or eBay or for whoever, that's why they're growing because they have what I want. Now, I didn't need 50 of them, but that's the smallest number I could order.
Yeah.
It's not a huge amount of money. So now I'm going to have 40 that I'm going to have to figure out what the heck to do with. But I need this one specific thing. I know I could make do with something else. I could run a drywall screw in it and say to hell with it. I don't want to do that, you know. So it's the people who have that stuff that are online that are forcing people like me who prefer to buy local because when I need something, I need it now. I really don't want to wait for it to come from Texas.
All right, I agree. I
You know,
agree.
I want it now. But now we're being forced to go to places like McMaster Car or Amazon or eBay and buy more than we need just to get the few that we actually want, you know?
You could argue though, and I agree with you. I prefer to go down to the store.
Mm.
Like really, I prefer that. But a lot of times they don't have the exact thing that you, so you have the
Right.
option. But I would say that the only ones that have survived have been, I mean, that I can think of. There's a few like Walmart, right?
Hmm.
Um, but we did see, and I think it's due to the Amazons and such or eBay's. I think that people like Sears or companies like Sears and Kmart we saw disappear.
Hmm.
Um, so we've seen a lot of that due to that push, but there's always that group of people. I think there's that group of people in all of us. A lot of people want to stop and take that walk and look around and such. I
Yeah.
think that that's also, I think it's an important thing to be able to do that. So I think there's room for both, but not everyone survives.
No,
You
not everyone will survive, and a lot of them have been mismanaged. A lot of them, you know, went through 52 different owners in the last 15 years, and different people who think they could run it better and try to modernize and to go about it the wrong way. I mean, there are as many stories as there are stores.
yeah,
So, but it's also a generational thing because we have adults who are having kids now who have never gone shopping that way. Their entire existence has been online. You need something, you go on Amazon or eBay or wherever, you look it up, you order it, and off you go.
yeah.
You know, and so going down to a place, to a shoe store, and putting your foot in that little measuring device to make sure you get the, you know, my feet haven't changed in 50 years, but still putting your little feet in that device and getting, okay, I need this size, and go up and try them on, walk around the room a little bit, you know, and yeah, this one doesn't rub my toes and this one's okay on the heel.
Promenade, promenade.
Yeah, there's a whole generation maybe working on two now that have never done that because they order everything online,
Yeah,
you know.
that's a lot of
And
information that's dropped off the
mhm.
timeline for people's point of reference.
Oh, dude, there is a channel on YouTube called, I think it's called Do You Remember? They have been showing, you know, the TV shows from the 70s or commercials from the 80s or what have you. But he's started a new series of, do you remember these things from grandma's house? And it's really messing with my brain because it's stuff like a rotary dial telephone. And it's like, dude, grandma's house wasn't that long ago. I had one of those.
Hmm.
You know, yeah, I remember it from grandma's house. They thought there was magical mystery voodoo when we got a push button landline phone,
Well. Now,
you know.
to be fair, in the timeline of telephones, there was that black one with the little cup and wire.
Mhm.
I didn't experience that growing up. I had the one that was that you had the ones that hung on the wall,
Mhm.
and then you had the ones that were like that box, that square box.
Mhm.
I had the we had the rotary, and then we upgraded to the little
Push
um,
button
push
in the
button one.
70s. Yeah.
But it was the same little box, just with little push buttons.
Mhm.
And the original one, in fact, I remember when I was little, my mom, I was gonna call someone, maybe someone in the family, go call your grandma or something like that. And I remember her telling me how to do the thing. Because to me, I remember something to that. It's been such a long time. But long story short, we didn't have that sort of 1930s
No.
style.
Yeah, we didn't either. But it wasn't all that long ago. Phones came in black, and that was it.
That's what I'm picturing in my mind. Yeah,
And then suddenly there was black, or I don't know if remember if they called it almond.
beige.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was a beige color. They called it
that's what
almond.
we had that one.
Yeah. And those were your two choices. You couldn't get white, you couldn't get blue, couldn't get yellow.
And you had a phone book. We always used the phone book.
Mhm. Mhm.
If you needed to look for going back to the hardware stuff, you would open up the phone book, and they had your barbers in there, and your families that lived in town. So you had a connection. You had all the names of the families that lived in town.
But I still prefer that because I know I can get online and I can Google hardware stores Medford, Oregon, or just the zip code, hardware stores in the zip code. But I'm gonna get an ad for McMaster Car wherever they're located. And I'm gonna get Fastenal, and I'm gonna get a whole bunch of places that are not in Medford, Oregon
Mm-hmm.
on that Google search. Whereas if I jump into the yellow pages, they're all within this valley. They're all in this area. They may not be in Medford, they may be in the next town over to the north or the next town to the south. But I'll drive if I have to. But I'm not going to be bombarded with stuff from Chicago or Georgia or Texas or New York or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
So I still prefer that because it gives me a place I can call. You have them, you have 20 of them in stock, killer, on my way. Boink. And then half the time I could walk into that place and say, yeah, I spoke to somebody on the phone. I need X, Y, and Z. Oh, yeah, you're sitting right here. Boom, pay my cash, and off I go. And I was happy to do that, but I'm not wading through advertisements for stuff I don't want,
Yeah.
you know?
Another thing, I don't know how good this story will unfold, and it's better if you're from Miami, to get the point of it. But on that note of places and this and that, like, just businesses and whatnot. The other day, I decided to go and get myself a hamburger,
Mm-hmm.
and I decided on Burger King,
Mm-hmm.
which I had not visited for a while. I try every now and again, and have been disappointed every time. It's like quality has gone down the tubes, but
Mm-hmm.
just on a continuous basis, like quality has gone down. Well, again, keeping in mind this is Miami,
Mm-hmm.
and what I mean by that is that this is literally, they call this the capital of Latin America. Or
Okay.
I'm sorry, they call this the capital of the Americas,
Mm-hmm.
to include South, Central, and North,
Okay.
because everything converges here. You can make that argument about many major cities, but in terms of where all sorts of businesses from other countries and dialects and languages and such, it converges here. I mean, not here in where I live in Sweetwater, but you get the point,
Sure, I do.
in the greater Miami area.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of that. Well, I went to the Burger King, and I walked in, and it was freaking empty. The drive-through was empty. I said, I'm gonna walk in. I mean, I can use a little exercise. I walked in, but the drive-through was empty. The inside was empty, but there was one lady sitting by the fountain machine,
Mm-hmm.
just doing something there. And I walked in, and I stood in front of the register. There's nobody in the register. And it's like 9 o'clock in the evening. Yes, 9 o'clock in
Mm-hmm.
the evening. A burger. It's not outrageous. It happens all the
No,
time.
it's not.
It used to happen even more, but I don't do such things anymore because it's the quality. And so I'm standing there, and I waited a good 3-4 minutes, and like, the only thing is this lady like wiping down the machine or whatever the heck she's doing, and I'm just standing there. I'm saying, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm being patient. Things are gonna roll out nice. What's the worst that can happen? And nothing bad. But then that lady walks across from behind me, and she says, I'm going to help you in one moment. So she knew, and she's the one standing for the register, and she made me wait. Now, this is a first world problem, but in reality, in America, in the United States, when a customer comes in, and I'm not saying it because I'm supposed to be special or this or that, but
No.
just in a general sense, if a
Yes.
customer arrives, the first intention is um, to greet and service
Take
the
care of the
customer.
customer. Exactly.
Right. And the reason for that is that you want the person to get what they came for, so that you can quickly extract the money in that exchange, and move on to the next person.
Right.
Um, so everybody benefits from that transaction, whatever. And she's walking from behind. She says in Spanish, she says, "Sir, or in broken English, sir, I'm sorry, I don't speak English, as she's walking and she's looking at me, and I turned around and I said in Spanish, "Don't worry, I speak Spanish and English, not and both at the same time." And she didn't show any facial nothing. She,
Mhm.
like sort of a little bit of like a cloudy, and she
Mhm.
walked in, and then she stood behind the register, and
Mhm.
she looked at me, and she had that cloudy look on her face, and I said to her, "You know what?" In Spanish, "You know what? I changed my mind. I'm gonna speak to you only in English." And I go, "Arr, arr, arr, arr," and I did this to her. I went, "Arr, arr, 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 arr," and I stopped and I looked at her to see her react. Obviously, I'm being playful. I'm
Mhm.
not being serious.
Mhm.
She didn't get the joke. She didn't find
Oh no, here we go.
she didn't find it funny. There was
Uh,
like, and so I felt at that moment, this is Twilight Zone time.
mhm.
So I I order my burger, my Whopper thing or whatever,
Mhm.
and I stand to the side, and then this one lady comes around, which is the manager lady, and she brings the food and stuff, and I get the drink, and I walk over to the fountain and stuff, and then all of a sudden, "Sir, how many burgers did I give you?" And I turn around, the lady standing there, "How many burgers did I?" There was one guy that had come in
Mhm.
right after me, and made an order. I got my order before him, and now she's confused about how many burgers she put in my bag compared to his. And I said, "One burger," and blank stares and stuff. And the guy's looking at me like they're crazy. The customer's looking at me, and I'm looking at the customer. Like everybody knows that they're screwed.
Mhm.
It was like Twilight Zone era. I know this is not a big deal story, but just compound. Okay, I'll wrap it up. Compound the fact that if it happened to me, like all these weird things, compound that with anybody coming through, and then I guess extrapolate why the place is freaking empty.
Yeah.
Is the service is crap, and
Yeah.
they weren't rude, but they're not going to be able to service anybody that speaks English. So
Mhm.
you can cancel that right off the bat. Now
Mhm.
you could point at the number one, but there's so many things like a little ketchup packet, or I don't know what, or maybe you
Mhm.
don't want onions in your.
Mhm.
So cancel all those people. People that do are bilingual, cancel a good portion of them to have any patience at all from that kind of stuff. So it compounds. And imagine the drive through. So essentially, you have a Burger King sitting in the corner that has little to no traffic at all.
Yeah.
It makes no freaking sense whatsoever. I don't
See,
know, but quality has gone downhill, dude.
as you're saying that, I'm sitting here going, okay, he's right. I could order a numero uno grande
You could do that.
Coke, and I
hmm
would get a large number one combo with a Coke.
Yeah, cold
If I
fries and cold burger. By the way,
if if I didn't want onions or lettuce, I'd be screwed because I don't know how to say no onions. No, I know how to say no, but I don't know how to say onions or lettuce in Spanish. So I'd
well,
be screwed.
but that's on you because you should have prior to going to Burger King, um, photo printed images of onions and stuff, and
Dude,
like little cue cards.
dude, have you looked at the cash register? They don't even have words. They got pictures of the food.
Well, I mean, I remember back in the I used to work at McDonald's, and I
Mhm.
can't tell you what exactly how it. I remember a lot of buttons, but I can't remember the details of if it was words or little items.
Yeah, it varies from place to place. In some places, they still do, it is text, but in other places, it is pictures of the food, you know.
Yeah,
So,
so a lot of people, I can't even say that. It's easy for me to say for whatever reason, but it seems like certain things are no brainers in order to get from A to B. But
mhm,
in other words, like things involving like a burger joint, like
mhm,
working at one. But with that said, there's a bunch of things that I could, if I sat and thought about, that are perplexing to me that
mhm.
I know are simple, but could very well be perplexing. But then again, if I'm working
Yeah,
at a job, you would imagine that I don't know, whatever,
Well,
dude.
I
I think
mean,
it's probably some.
you would imagine that the training would be up to snuff, number one, because
Yeah.
let's not forget, you're talking mainly minimum wage jobs that are traditionally for younger people probably a first, maybe a second job, depending upon if they, boloed out of Arby's and have gone on to Burger King or what have you.
Hmm.
So, but still, the training should be there,
Hmm.
you know, and no, it's not supposed to be a career. It's supposed to be a first job. It's supposed to teach you specific skills about working in the adult world.
Yeah.
And things like priorities, like the lady wiping down the soda machine for however long before she even acknowledged you were in the store. I mean,
Right.
I have an issue with that. And when I was managing the casino floor, no, you acknowledge them. The customer is not a bother. The
Hmm.
customer is the reason for you to be here. They're the reason you have a job. So, yeah,
Yeah.
you got the soda machine half taken apart. You stop what you're doing, say hello, get your butt around the counter, get behind the register, you take their order. You can finish that up after the order is taken,
Yeah.
you know, so
Yeah.
that they can get a soda.
Huh.
But that's training. That comes down to training.
When I was
And Rick makes a good point here because it's more than just fast food. A huge portion of the service industry has gone to crap and hasn't even begun to recover post COVID. Yeah, I agree 100%.
no,
And
we're
it's
screwed,
not
dude.
just fast food.
No, 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 we're screwed on so many levels, though. We had a continuum. Okay, so from the moment, look, I don't want to, don't take this the wrong way in general out there, and from the moment we're born to and throughout our lives, in a general sense, we're screwed in the sense that there's a continuum of things and behaviors and processes that occur in retail and in life
Mm-hmm.
in general. There's all these things. Well, we had a break for 2 years of that continuum, even though there was the screwage that had been occurring
Mm-hmm.
for eons or whatever you want to say. But that 2 year break made even the most inadequate human beings say, "What the?" You know what it made them do? It made a lot of people think, life, the universe, and everything. What does it
Mm-hmm.
mean? And once they started pondering, you can throw out service and everything out the door because people are starting to reevaluate what the hell.
But then what we have to do as the customers is not accept it. We have to not accept that lowest common denominator.
Yeah.
And that's what we are far too willing to. Well, I know you wanted your hamburger at the time, but we're far too willing to stand there and wait for them to finish doing what they're doing so that they will condescendingly come help us. Well, it's like, no, you're not the only burger joint. And if you're not going to take care of a customer, you're not going to have a customer. I'll go to the next burger joint. You're not the only one in town, you know?
For the most.
So it and then I do take those little surveys. I
Oh, do you?
will take that little survey and
Yeah.
say, this was excellent. This person helped me and they really know their stuff. Kudos to them. Or the food was great. This guy might need a little bit more training. And here's why. I'll take the survey because they can't fix it if they don't know it's broke. You know what I mean?
But doesn't it also make you think, in terms of the experience at the burger joint? And I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
that the experience. Well, I'm not sure. I could imagine that in your area and maybe Rick's area. I think Rick is up in New York, and Jim and SDM Customs and everyone. They have their respective areas where they have their
Sure.
service. I don't know if it's as compounded as far as lack of quality in your respective areas. I see it something terrible.
I, I do see it. It is getting better because I'm seeing familiar faces again. Um, there for a while, there were people who, well, a lot of businesses just closed down and or were running skeleton crews. Like you couldn't go into a burger joint here; you had to go through the drive-through. You
Mm.
know, and everybody wore gloves. They held a container out, you dropped your card in, and they picked it up with gloves, ran it, dropped it right back in the container, and then hit the sanitizer and all that. Everybody was wearing masks in the whole shooting match. But even after that, and they started opening up again, it wasn't the same crew. So you had a bunch of trainees who were all running around bumping into one another, not knowing what to do. The old saying, when in trouble, when in doubt, run in circles, scream and shout, because that's all they know how to do.
Actually, though,
Well,
when in trouble, I have another saying that ends it, but
yeah, but but things have kind of mellowed out. They're getting better and they're learning the jobs, but you also have turnover, and you have people coming in all the time who need training, and you have people going out who've decided this ain't for me, or they're moving on to other things, or school started or whatever.
when in
So
trouble,
mhm.
you said work it out, is what you said?
No, when in trouble, when in doubt, run in circles, scream and shout. That's
Okay.
all they know how to do.
Okay. Because we
you
used
know
to say, when in trouble, whip it out.
yeah,
So,
well, that
sorry.
you're channeling your inner Ted Nugent. But they let's see what Jim
That
here.
was uncalled for.
Jim says they put the debit card machines at the drive-through on hockey sticks up here so they could reach them out to you. Jim, score yourself 5 bonus points. That may be the most Canadian thing I've ever read.
It's so insane, though.
The only thing that would have made that more Canadian if you just said the debit card machines at the Tim Hortons drive-through. That would have been the trifecta. Man. But yeah, it is getting better, because you can't expect a guy with a month on the job to know everything. And
yeah.
they were really in a hurt, because they were basically hiring anybody that had a pulse that could stay upright for an 8-hour shift. Well, as more and more people started coming back to work and joining the workforce, they could start culling out the mouth breathers and the bottom feeders, and kind of, you really don't want to be here. Well, let me escort you and help you on your way. We'll hire somebody that actually cares about the job. So it is getting better, but it's nowhere near what it used to be.
No, at
But
all.
I think that is something that society is going to have to work on, in that we have to stop being so willing to accept mediocrity. You know,
Idiocracy.
yeah, well, just mediocrity, just crap. I mean, I sent you a video. I found this YouTube channel called, and I don't know how to pronounce this. I don't know if it's Original OS or if it's Originalos or what, but it's a YouTube channel of animated cartoons, and it's cavemen. And I sent Eloy a cartoon of this guy before crap was what was it called? Before
Cheap junk.
cheap junk. That's what it was. And I said something to him about, this reminds me of a trip to Harbor Freight. And basically, the premise of it is this one caveman keeps going back and buying cheap hammers that break every time he hits a rock with them. But it's true. We keep going back. We complain about, I'm just going to say it, Harbor Freight. We know they're cheap crap, but we keep going back. We think somehow the next trip is going to be different, and that this $35 table saw is somehow going to be an excellent tool this time, because the previous 4 were crap.
But but there's a pro and con to it. Obviously, we all know this. So if you're a career, you know, handyman, or specialist in whatever, you would more often than not want a tool that you're not going to have to run back to the store and get, because it breaks every so often. But there are people that are, well, there's many types of people, but there's people
Sure.
that are novice
Hmm.
and are doing a job. They don't want to spend the extra money, and they get this machine that may or may not last the lifetime of the specific project, or dip their hands into some sort of tool that they would never have dreamed spending money on. And then you have your professionals that maybe on the job something breaks, they
Hmm.
can't pay for it because the check hasn't cleared yet, but they need to finish
Right.
the job. So there are
Right.
reasons for it, and then there are little things that are valuable. So I mean,
Yeah,
that's
they have their place, but what I'm getting at is you and I are pretty savvy. We know a junk tool for the most part when we see one, but Harbor Freight has its place. I
yeah,
mean, there are some things that they have there. I mean, it's really hard to screw up a bungee cord. It's really
well,
hard to mess up a blue tarp, you
yeah.
know. And if you need a blue tarp, that they are, I mean, they should rename their place Tarps R Us, because I'm here to tell you, buddy, I would say 99% of the blue tarps you see in any given day came from Harbor Freight.
Yeah,
But when you're looking for an HVLB paint sprayer for your car, you're probably not going to find good quality at Harbor Freight.
I could vouch for that purple sprayer that they have, the little one. It's more like a
Hmm.
detail one. I could vouch for that one. I've I haven't used it in a while, but when I did, I use it all the time, and it was good. So I can
Hmm.
vouch for that little purple one from back then. I don't know about the quality now, but
What I'm getting at is you're not going to start a
painting business with it.
yeah, you're not going to start a body shop with Harbor Freight tools because you're going to be buying them every other week.
Yeah,
Well, my point in all this is we know there are some good deals. Um, Rick French again says the Harbor Freight Central Machine Dust Collector is top quality for the money. I'm in 100% agreement with you. I've got one. The thing is killer. It works like a champ. But there are also a lot of other tools that they have there that are just absolute junk. And we know that. Now,
I'll
Harbor
give you
Freight
the
has stepped up their game in the past 15, 20 years.
yeah.
Um, but my point in this is we're too willing to accept mediocrity. We know walking into Harbor Freight is kind of like when you're 7 years old and you get a present from your grandma for Christmas. You're not really sure what's inside it, but chances are you know you're not going to like it.
The problem
So,
the problem that I see, or that I'm imagining. So at one point, so if I was asked right now, what is the one item that you would, I would say their bottom tier sanders, the mouse shaped sander,
mhm,
will crap out on you, and the
mhm,
orbital sander will
mhm.
crap out on you.
Yep.
It'll just crap out on you. But here's the thing: the original ones that I had bought lasted me for years. And then when they crapped out, I said, well, this lasted me for years. And then
Mhm,
I won't lie, I did what that caveman in your video did, with the one orbital, because I liked it so much and I used it so much for a long time. And I said, well, that's the quality. And when I went and bought the next one, it crapped out shortly thereafter. And I
mhm,
bought one more. And once that third one came into play and it did the
mhm,
same thing, I said, well, I'm getting had here. And
mhm,
I think that their issue, I don't know this for a fact, but I can
mhm.
imagine it, is their quality control throughout the process. Um, I mean, the parts themselves, but something, I must have gotten a good batch with people that were on the ball roughly,
Mhm.
and the materials were on point roughly, and then the rest was crap.
Yeah. I mean, I bought a Porter Cable random orbit sander in 2000. I'm still using it. I used it today. I have replaced the bottom bearing in it. That's it. And the thing just keeps, it will not die. And I paid 33 bucks for it. So I can't complain. But it, what, one of the things that bothers me about the Harbor Freight thing is I've seen where it has turned a lot of people away from ever wanting to do that kind of work again. If you get a crummy tool and you just something simple like a doweling jig, the Harbor Freight doweling jig is like $14. And if you take it apart, clean it up, and calibrate it when you put it back together, it's a good piece of equipment. I would venture to say probably 75% of people don't know to do that because it's not in the instructions. It's just something that I did.
It's a sticky mess in a bag.
It is a sticky, oil covered mess. You wipe off the oil and you try to use it, and your joints won't line up worth a damn. So people start doubting their skills or their ability. And why would I want to take this up? Or you get a tool that you swear, well, it's a brand new tool. It can't be the tool. It's got to be me. And just, well, I guess woodworking isn't for me. But if they would have spent 10%, maybe 15% more on a quality tool, Lord knows what they could accomplish. So my broader point in all of this is that we're too willing to accept mediocre stuff. We want $1,000 quality for $50, and that just doesn't happen. But we'll gladly spend the $50, then complain about the quality.
Mm-hmm.
You know, hell, I'm guilty of it. I think I've bought probably 4 of those Ozark Trail slant leg 9x9 pop-up canopies before I decided this is getting just as expensive as if I would have gone down and bought an Easy Up. Instead of spending $60 a whack on these things that last maybe a year, let me go ahead and spend the $250 on this Easy Up, which has lasted now for 5 years.
Yeah.
And still looks brand new.
Yeah.
So the false economy of settling for crap, we only have ourselves to blame. We can't do our research, decide we're not paying $22.50. We're going to pay $7.35. We can't complain about the $7.35 one. It was our choice.
Yeah, no, but a lot of people, there's variation in that. If you don't have the money, but you want to do the project, there's that option. So there are people that, so there's all sorts of different variations. So it's good because it's out there. Yes, a lot of people get into it thinking that it's going to last, and it doesn't, and then they lose out on their wanting to do it. But in a pinch, it'll help people in their specific bind that they may or may not be in.
If you know how to jerry rig it to make it work, yeah. But when I'm talking, I'm not even talking about something that won't last. I'm talking about something that's inaccurate straight out of the box.
Yeah.
If you go out and you buy a miter saw, you expect it to be accurate out of the box. If you don't know any better and you don't know to check it, you could be very disappointed. When you set it for 0 and it's cutting at 3 degrees. It doesn't sound like much.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's situations like that. I'm just saying in a broad sense, there's that place that's the outlet, bargain bin for tools. And in a broad sense, you're going to have your walk-in traffic that has different goals in mind or different sort of like assumptions in mind. And I think it's good that it's there. I haven't visited in a long time, but I think it's good that it's there. And I think that the false thing that you're talking about is people that don't know any better. But you're going to find out one way or the other that these tools will crap out on you. So eventually.
Now, there are some good tools there. I've got their oscillating spindle sander. And
the big one?
It's not very big. It's benchtop model.
Right.
And it's got kind of a teardrop shaped table on it. And, it spins around and it goes up and down. I'm happy it does what it says on the box. That's fine.
That's a big ticket item over there.
And, well, I bought it used. I paid $40 for it from a guy who just needed to get it out of his garage. And I've used the heck out of that thing and it works like a champ. I've got no complaints about that little tool. None whatsoever. I have complaints about the quality of their sandpaper, so I don't buy their sandpaper. But, that's just on me. I mean, you put their sandpaper tube on the thing and it'll maybe last you through a 2x4, but that's about it.
Do
You
not
know.
buy, for whatever the case, do not buy their safety harnesses for mountain climbing, just in case.
Yeah, and I know people who have bought Harbor Freight trailers and made teardrop trailers and camp trailers out of them, and they love them. There's not an not a complaint about them, but some of their stuff just isn't up to par.
Yeah.
And it's a shame. Let's see, Jamie Page here. A lot of people that do cheap out on tools, I find, resent the people that do spend on quality tools for whatever reason. I have seen that a bit. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, but I don't know what their motivation is. So I can't
I think.
say that I don't know what the resentfulness. I don't know if it's I don't know. I don't know.
Mhm.
I have seen people with a specific brand, like for instance, what is it, that green brand, that green and prep?
Festool.
Yeah, I seen a lot of digs at that because it seems nichey,
Hmm.
and I've seen a lot of people, but I think it's more to do with, maybe it is resentment that the price is out of their range, or maybe it's because they would probably end up buying it if the price was in the range.
Hmm.
So who knows what the story is? I have seen that though.
Yeah, and I don't get that. I really don't understand it. I wonder, Jamie, how much of that is jealousy. Now, to me, I think some of the prices are absolutely ridiculous. I was talking with Martin, the guy that built my shed out here in the backyard, and he was talking about his Festool random orbit sander. And I said, "Oh, really? Is it that much of a difference?" He says, "Oh, the difference is night and day. You would not believe the quality of the finish I get out of this." He says it's terrific. So I thought, okay, maybe I'll check that out. And then I got on there and I looked at it, and $600 for a 5-inch random orbit sander. I'm like, are these people stoned? Are they crazy? Are they a combination of the two?
Well, if they
And
could tell
again,
you,
I look over at my little $33 Porter cable and said, "It's just you and me until death do us part, kid." Because I'll be dipped if I'm paying $600 for that.
well,
But
maybe it's the
I don't spite him for having it.
no,
That's the
no,
difference.
no,
You
but
know.
you do get into the fun of poking fun. Oh, you're a Makita guy. Yeah, I'm a Makita guy. Oh, well, DeWalt's better than Makita. You do get that
Mhm.
sort of like soccer, that
Yes,
soccer sports
you do.
thing. That's one thing. But another
Hmm.
thing is, well, jealousy is part of the human experience. And it
Hmm.
doesn't have to be tools. It could be any number of
Right.
countless things in which you will find people having some sort of
Hmm.
jealousy towards other people or persons or whatnot.
Here's one here, another one here for Jamie. Prime example in the YouTube comment section. I could make that too if I had a $250,000 workshop. Jamie, you know what my answer to that is? No, you couldn't. My answer is simply that. No, you couldn't. Because if you knew what you were talking about, you wouldn't have said that. I don't have $250,000 worth of tools out there. Ain't no way. So just by making that statement, you're showing your ignorance. So my reply to that is no, you couldn't.
Yeah,
So, but
people are like that.
I don't get the putting people down. See, Rick French said, I've started buying some Festool products, tremendously high priced, agreed, but impeccable quality. Great. And if you're happy with your purchase and if you think it's worth it, who am I to say no? And
What?
And I'll be honest with you, I have looked very, very hard at that domino jointer that you're talking about. I mean, and I can't bring myself to pull the trigger on it because the price to me still has radiation from its orbit around the sun. But believe me, I have been watching the marketplace to see if there's one for sale in my area.
You'll never. Yeah. Well, And it's not the same as a biscuit joiner because those are thick, nice, thick
Mm-hmm.
little blocks that Fez tool thing does.
Yep.
But a biscuit joiner does its job. In fact, I'll tell you what, one tool that doesn't suck
Mhm.
is the Harbor Freight biscuit joiner. I can tell you that much because I've used it a lot
Yeah.
and it's good. I haven't used it recently, but I've used it a lot in general, and
Yeah.
it's good. It's good. It does the job, but they're biscuits, so
Yeah.
it's not the same as that nice thick little chunk of whatever.
That tenon. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and that's why I have the doweling jig. In fact, I've got a couple of doweling jigs. No, I don't have any of the $400 doweling jigs because I just don't do that much. I don't do enough work on that kind of thing to warrant it. But I
Yeah.
have decent quality that does work and does work well.
Hmm.
But I don't have a $700 chisel set. I have a $30 set from the local Home Depot. But for the way I use them, that's all I need. I don't need big, I don't need the big name brand Lee Valley or whatever um, chisel set because I just don't do that kind of uh, work.
Yeah.
So now Jim brings up a good point here. Jim Dockrell, with battery tools, I think once you get on a brand system, you pretty much lock into that platform due to battery prices and who wants 17 different chargers. Have you got on that bandwagon as well? Do you agree with that?
Well, I agree with it, except I've broken that rule. So I'm DeWalt guy,
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
but I have a problem with it because there is a little bit of that coolness to it,
Mm-hmm.
um, where certain tools just freaking pop out at you, and the price, like when
Mm-hmm.
Christmas comes around, if you walk around Home Depot, you'll see in the past you've seen all the brands giving you discounts with their tools, and I came across Makita, and I said
Mm-hmm.
I can't pass that up because it comes with the charger, but they throw that in just like what Jim said, because once
Mm-hmm.
you have the charger and you have one battery,
Mm-hmm.
why, you can build an empire, and so you're gonna have to buy other tools. So I did get that. So currently I have overwhelmingly DeWalt and a
Mm-hmm.
couple of Makita stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I love the Makita stuff, but in my opinion, just looking at the overall thing, I believe that Harbor Freight. I believe that DeWalt is the higher quality, rugged
Mm-hmm.
item between the two.
Yeah. Yeah. And the I'm old school and I'm showing my age here. I still don't trust battery technology. I still don't trust it. I want something I can plug in and run indefinitely, and I don't have to be concerned about
You don't
batteries.
have
The only battery operated things I have is I have an impact driver and I have or not, yeah, an impact driver and a cordless drill.
that's it.
That's all I have. I
But
don't
dude,
have a I don't have a battery operated circular saw or any of
mm,
the other stuff.
well, I'm here to tell you, no joke, battery powered circular saws are
Mm-hmm.
badass. No
I
joke.
I gotta say, I have been watching this guy uh, in New Hampshire.
Mhm.
I found him, oh my gosh, 2018 or something like that. They were building a barn, a uh, post and beam construction barn on their property. And he has a little, I want to say it's a 5 inch, 5 and a quarter inch, whatever that size is, DeWalt cordless circular saw.
Mhm.
And I have watched him drop that thing off of ladders. I've watched he built that entire barn with it, just him and his wife. Then he built a machine shed and a wood shed, and now they're building another house. He's built two more barns,
Mhm.
all with that same saw, and it just keeps going.
The only
And
the
that
only
little thing has really impressed me. Now he's got probably 6 batteries for the ding dong thing, but
the only problem with it is, which is the beginning learning curve of it, because it's different than plug and play,
mm-hmm,
is that, like everything else, you have to let the blade
mm-hmm,
do the cutting.
yeah,
So you can't rush through it at the exact speed you would with a corded tool.
mm-hmm,
You have to give it a little bit more time for the thing to do its job.
Hmm.
but
Yeah,
it's slightly different. It's not.
but I'm
It's
watching this guy, and this guy was a carpenter in a previous life. I mean, he retired from carpentry, had some injuries, and he quit doing that full time, and now he works from home full time. So he knows what he's doing, and I've noticed that too. He's backed off of the piece, he fires it up and lets it get up to speed, and then lets the blade do the cutting.
yeah.
But it doesn't take any longer
No, it's not that big of a deal.
than with a corded, you know. And I mean, let's face it, my old skill saw, and yes, it is a skill saw. Um, it weighs a ton as compared to that little thing, and that little son of a gun, just you can't kill it.
Yeah, it's a good tool. I'm glad I got it. I also like the what do you call it? The angle grinder,
Mm-hmm.
because it does its job. It really does the job. I mean, again,
Mm-hmm.
you have to keep in mind that you're about to contact the piece
Mm-hmm.
of metal or whatever the heck, and you have to, give the thing a
Mm-hmm.
little moment than that you probably wouldn't with a plug and play. Even a
Mm-hmm.
plug and play, you're gonna give it a second and then go.
Yeah, you got to let it get up to speed.
Yeah, so it's really not much of a difference. I would say plug and play is still more powerful, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe the bigger batteried ones now that they
Yeah,
have are up to par. But just the
yeah,
same, it's worth it in my opinion. It's worth it.
yeah. I have three angle grinders. Two of them plug into the wall, and one of them is pneumatic. It hooks up to the compressor.
Oh, okay.
So, and yeah, I mean they're interchangeable, but I like that because I can put a cutoff wheel on one, and I can put two different flap discs on the other two, and then just reach for the one that I need when I need it. You know,
Oh, you know what does
but that's cool.
necessarily not is not a good idea from Harbor Freight?
Hmm.
They're pneumatic. What do you call it? Brad nailers and whatnot.
Yeah.
Um, they will work for a while depending on the good one that you get,
Hmm.
but a lot of times you get a crappy one and all sorts of shitty stuff happen. Oh,
Now,
sorry.
I will say one of the hidden gems. I have a wide crown stapler from Harbor Freight that I used in upholstery, and I have been using that thing. Oh my gosh, I've been using that since 2007, and it will not die. It will not die. It 3 drops of oil in it before I plug it into the compressor. Make sure you drain your compressor every night, folks, and put the staples in it, and boom, 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 it just goes. I don't use those little staple gun things. I hate those. Just give me a pneumatic stapler and bap, 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 bap. I'm done.
It's
You
better
know.
that way.
Oh yeah, so much.
By
Yeah,
the way,
yeah. I'm hauling around hoses and what have you.
yeah,
But
but
I'm also driving 9/16 staples all the way in and not having to go back with a hammer and beat them in and hope I don't just bend them over. You know.
there's a video out there where you can Google it or you can YouTube it, where a guy's compressor blows up,
Oh, ouch.
and he shows the aftermath. It was in his garage.
Hmm.
It blew out the windows. It shook the frame off the door slightly off the it blew
Hmm.
out the windows, shrapnel everywhere. It was a bomb, dude.
Yeah, it probably the tank rusted from lack of draining it or all the condensation that builds up inside of it over the years. Compressor tanks have a life,
Hmm.
you know. So
Yeah.
Linda just reminded me of something. I said I only have two battery operated tools. We, the two of us, we have three. She has her bobbin winder. She took a cheap Black and Decker cordless drill, and she on her loom she has these. It looks like a spool for thread, but it's about 3 to 4 inches long. She chucked a piece of 1/4 inch all thread in it, slides that bobbin on it, and then uses a wing nut to tighten it up, and then she spools thread onto it for her loom. And that's her high speed, low drag bobbin winder rather than
Mhm.
sitting there with the hand crank type.
Yeah.
So she'll sit in her she'll sit in her recliner and wind bobbins. Okay, she's getting ready to weave again. Yep. So, but oh yeah, Greg. I have a worm drive skill saw and that thing is heavy. Yeah, probably what, 25 pounds, something like that. Have you ever run one of those big worm drive skill saws?
I think that my ex boss, when I used to work at the cabinet shop, had one. I might have used it a couple of times. It's not something that I usually use the regular, not the worm drive one.
Mm-hmm. That's those suckers will give you a workout. Here's a little bit of trivia. Let's see if anybody in the chat knows this. That skill worm drive circular saw was the first one invented, and they patented it. They were the original, and that's why they're still called skill saws. Do you know what they were actually invented for? It wasn't for carpenters.
I have no idea.
Let's see if anybody in the chat knows what the original worm drive skill saw was actually invented for. It wasn't for carpentry or woodworking. Let's see here. We got a few more
It
comments
wasn't
here.
for woodworking at all.
No, it wasn't for woodworking. Well, I get you now. You wouldn't even say it was for woodworking in a roundabout way. SDM says I still use a Yankee screwdriver almost daily. I think you, me, possibly Eloy, and maybe two other folks listening right now know what a Yankee screwdriver is.
I have no idea what it is.
It had a chuck on the end of it. You put a driver bit into it, tightened it down, and the handle ratcheted.
Oh,
And when you push on it, it ratchets and it turns that bit.
okay.
So you could stick the bit into the screw and go zip, 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 and it would drive the screw in.
That's really cool.
Yep.
I have a ratcheting one.
Yeah.
But not that.
Yep. Yep.
That's
Yankees.
cool.
And they had a little plug in the handle. You turned the plug and opened up, and that's where all the bits were stored.
Well, I mean,
It had a little switch. You could either tighten the screw or you could loosen the screw.
well,
You
no,
flip
but
the switch, it backed it
my
out.
ratcheting one has that compartment, but it doesn't have that push that you're saying, and it rotates when you push.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, lots of good guesses out here. Jamie says for surgeons, that's a scary thought, but no. Racing, no, that's what belt sanders were invented for. I'm kidding. Butchers, no.
That's a
Ice,
good one.
no. Some good guesses.
Yeah.
They were developed for the sugar industry to take out in the fields and cut sugar cane.
Damn.
Yeah. Because it was faster than going out there with a hand sickle. You couldn't cut sugar cane with a scythe. It was too thick, but they'd go out there and grab it and use a hand sickle.
These
And
machetes.
they were, yeah, or machetes, yeah. But
Yeah.
that's what it was invented for. And then pretty soon the carpenter said, hey, I got an idea. Can I have one of those too? You know.
Interesting.
Yep.
Well,
They were invented for sugar cane.
but I mean, it's kind of weird how whatever. The original one had to have.
Excellent trivia. It's the screwdriver they took the controls off of the elevator in the Blues Brothers, the movie The Blues Brothers. That scene where they get in the elevator, they're going up to the Cook County assessor's office to pay off the taxes for the church. And he takes the Yankee screwdriver and pulls the controls off and messes up with the wiring.
I don't remember that. I wasn't a big fan of the Blues Brothers movie.
Oh man, it was great. That was one of my favorite flicks. I thought that was great. Oh well. Let's see. Yeah, saw has two handles for a reason, and you need both of them. Oh man. Yeah, I know we're not even close to touching on what you wanted to talk about this evening, and I promise we'll get to it.
Well, no, we can. If it fits, it fits. If it don't, it don't.
Well, I brought up that YouTube channel, Originalos or Original whatever. I'll put a link to it. I'll put a link to it over on our Facebook page, Trampled Underfoot Podcast on Facebook. I'll put a link to that channel. what I'm getting from this channel, it's a bunch of animations of cavemen. And this is before our modern conveniences, before the family doctor was a thing, uh, before the coronavirus was a thing, um, before commercials were a thing, before rocket science was a thing, before the bow and arrow was invented. Things like that, more or less just to kind of show that all of the stuff we've been complaining about all evening long is not original to us. This has been going on since the caveman days when Ook and Mook were coming up with the wheel. They say that the greatest invention in the world was the wheel. I tend to think the greatest invention was the second wheel because one wheel's kind of useless. You know.
Well, I mean, you do have barrels, wagon barrels.
Yeah, but I mean, two wheels is so much, and they also have two-wheeled wheelbarrows and wagon barrows, or so
I would say that's absolutely not. I would say that that's not true. The best invention was the horse.
mm, yeah, well, but we didn't invent that.
I know. I'm
So, oh, Steve, right on it again. Putting Trampled Underfoot podcast Facebook page link right there. Thank you. As soon as we're done here live, I'll go ahead and link that channel over there. They're about 3-minute long cartoons, and they even have a little tutorial on how to draw one of the cavemen. You know, it's it's some funny stuff, man. It's some funny stuff.
there's some people because it kind of reminds me. Remember the Flintstones, and they had the hairy caveman guy.
Mm-hmm.
I forget the name of him, but you remember he was covered in hair like a mop,
Mm-hmm.
and his arm would stick out, and he had a bat, and he would
Yep.
fly through the air, and he'd
Oh,
say,
Captain Caveman.
"Captain Caveman" was his name.
Yeah.
Was he the one that used to say "cowabunga"? No, that was the
That
Ninja
was
Turtle.
one of his sayings.
Was it?
Actually, the my first now. Okay, we need to be fact checked on this. Okay, the first time I remember hearing or seeing cowabunga was a poster of Snoopy on a surfboard, and this was back in the '60s. And he's like Snoopy on a surfboard in the bonsai pipeline. The wave is breaking over him, and he's screaming cowabunga.
Yeah, because that's sort of like a signal to like the surfer Hawaiian thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think the Ninja Turtles used it. One of the Ninja Turtles was like a skateboarding dude, and I think he used to use it. But
Mm-hmm.
the
Bart,
Captain Captain Caveman used to use it. I think
Bart Simpson did it a lot, and that's where a
you're
lot of
right.
folks now have heard it. But I remember that poster from the '60s. It may have been the early '70s,
That's a good
but
point.
definitely uh, late '60s.
Yeah, no, but he's right. I remember Bart Simpson doing the
Mm-hmm.
Cowabunga thing. Um, but I wanted to say there's some channels on YouTube that actually it's a so back in the 80s, going back way back in the 80s, who would have thought to VHS record TV, which they did,
Mm-hmm.
but who would have thought that people would VHS Saturday morning cartoons and that 30 to 40 years later to the present time, you could look up like summer of 81 and
Mm-hmm.
they have an actual recording of with commercials and everything from anywhere from Cincinnati to whatever the local, but it reflects on what you would have seen in Miami or
Yeah.
Oregon or whatnot. And I've run across those and I've sat and watched the whole thing. or watched a lot of it and thought to myself, wow, I was entertained by this.
Yeah. I mean, our crack research team here of Linda and Rick have been hard at work. For the definitive answer, Eddie Keane, 79-year-old lounge pianist and composer, coined the phrase cowabunga in 1949 while working as head writer for the Howdy Doody Show.
Oh, wow.
1949. Rick says from Google, 1950s, first popularized by character on the U.S. TV program Howdy Doody,
Uh-huh.
1947 and 1960. Later became associated with surfing culture and was further popularized by the use in the U.S. television cartoon program Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Okay. And so you can blame Eddie Keane for cowabunga. Okay.
Can I pause us all for half a second here? I just had an epiphany,
Mm-hmm.
which rhymes with breakfast as at Tiffany's. Oh, I said that. I just had an epiphany, and I don't know how brilliant I can claim it to be, or how useful it will be,
Mm-hmm.
because you all set it up for me, very easily, and you're probably gonna figure on it already. But here it goes. What if we had a show? Don't tell anyone. I know we're live to billions of people around the universe, but
Mm-hmm.
let's keep it here close. What just happened right now, in my opinion, and then again, my opinion, is just is brilliant. This is a show where the hosts, I'm thinking of a future thing, don't know really the answers to things. They just like ponder it. They say, hey, you know what? I wonder what happened here, and the audience goes digs it up, and then we talk about what we're seeing. Dude, you know how brilliant that is? Because number one, we're not looking for the
Well,
information, but we're reacting to it, and the audience is bringing it in, laying it on the table. I love the idea. Just keep that as an idea.
well, we
I
could
think
we
it's
could
brilliant.
make it a segment. Questions for the crowd.
I like the idea. It's so cool because right now we just learned some names and specific dates. But wait a second. You know what it really is? It's an even lazier extension of me Googling something. That's why I like it so much. You know what I just discovered? My lazy ass just is just
Yeah,
thinking about. Go ahead, go ahead.
yeah, yeah, yeah. What we just discovered is we're both too lazy to go, Alexa.
I just realized this is almost as bad, Mark. This is almost as bad as that one time, dude. I made a video and I told you about it and stuff. I made it so one time I woke up like around just the break of day, and I walked out my door. Remember, I'm sort of like a caveman myself, hermit. And I walked out my door and I looked up in the sky, and the sky was an awkward orange. And I quickly ran back into my house, grabbed my camera, and proceeded to film a whole segment so that I can make a video. And I made a video about it. And in the video, I'm like, look, guys, the sky is orange. Well, I realized later that, yeah, it's orange because you don't wake up early enough to see the sky. And I was completely
Welcome
blown
to
away.
morning.
I was completely blown away by the sunrise for the first time. And guys, look, I have it on my channel and I've kept it there. And nobody, because they don't know me necessarily, but the funny thing is that I'm filming the sunrise and I'm shocked at the color variation. This is dawn.
Oh man. Welcome to early morning
It's
for
horrible.
late sleepers.
So this is just as bad. I just reinvented the not wheel by saying you guys Google it for us. Insane.
Yep.
Moment of
Oh
brilliance
man.
gone.
Actually, that is kind of funny though. Okay, Jamie's got to leave us. He's heading for bed over in the UK. Good grief. It's already tomorrow morning over there. Ugh, man. How he stays up. He basically, you might as well say he's on a US time schedule
Mm-hmm.
because,
Yeah.
I mean, he's been in hangouts with us, until, 10, 11 o'clock at night to me.
That's
and
right.
he's 8 hours ahead of me. So it's
Mhm.
like, holy cow, man.
Well, now we
But
can talk. Now we can talk all the smack we want because he's not listening. Um,
Jamie's a good guy. He's good people.
but it's funny enough because although he may be in that time schedule,
Mm-hmm.
um, some people just can't help it. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's actual, I know I've mentioned it, but there's actual genes that are assigned to people at birth due to the randomness of it that lean them in that direction. So
Yeah.
maybe Jamie can't help it. It's just how he's made, you
Yeah.
know.
Some people are that way. I mean, and it also is, I think, I have no evidence to prove this except my own experience. I think it's also something to do with age, in
Mhm.
that when I was younger, I was a night owl. I mean, big time. I would rather stay up and watch the sun come up than go to bed, and then get up, 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and then be up. You know, I was just that way. Now, in my 60s, 9 o'clock, I'm ready for bed. I'm ready to, 9 o'clock, I shut everything down in here and I'm heading that way. And I may not get to sleep till 10 or 11, but I am in bed watching videos or doing my thing. Set up a playlist and watching videos, and that's it. Then
You
I
know
go
what?
to sleep.
You know what I've found, and I guess it's different because you just mentioned it, but for a long while, when I was a kid, I could sit in bed
Mhm,
and watch TV.
mhm.
If I lay down within the next 5 to 10 minutes, I'm asleep
It's and
completely.
it's anywhere. Well, last night I was an example of that. My head hit the pillow, and that was it. But
Yeah.
usually I can lay down, and it's about 45 minutes, maybe an hour, and I'm out. But that's when I get my entertainment. I'm watching videos or do whatever. Or I'm playing solitaire on my phone or something like that. And then, okay, I'm tired. The brain has been deactivated and decompressed. I've distracted my head from all the stuff that I got going on around up here. And then I'm up at, anywhere from 4 to 6 in the morning. And that was unheard of when I was younger. Usually I wanted to go to bed sometime between 4 and 6 in the morning. But now that's when I'm up. So,
Um. Uh. I will. Well, two things, but one thing. First. I forgot what the one thing first was. Oh, if you have trouble sleeping, the
mhm.
best thing to do is put on Star Trek: The Next Generation, and you, generally speaking, will not get through a whole episode without just conquering. But you have to concentrate in what they're saying.
That's the problem. I can't do that. I can't
Yeah.
concentrate on what's being said.
Well, no, but that's the thing. If you can't concentrate, but you try,
Hmm.
okay, the idea that it's completely because it's such a long-winded, like that whole series through all its incarnations, dude,
Well,
it is so it drags and drags and it'll
um,
knock your ass out.
I watch a lot of British TV, British panel shows and game shows and what have you. And there is a new one out called "I Literally Just Told You," where the game starts with the opening credits. And basically, what they call themselves the only game show in the world that gives you the answers before they ask the questions. They introduced the four players, and they introduced, the host and everything else, and they just start talking. Everything from the moment the music starts playing could be a question. They'll introduce, oh, this is Frank. He's from this town and he does this. And he's a 33-year-old father of two. And then they go on, this is Jessica. She's from this town. She does this job. She's a 48-year-old mother of four, or whatever. And then they'll come around, and the second question will be, what year was the first guy born. And they're sitting there going, oh my God. And he's like, I literally just told you, you know, it's a fun premise for a show. It
because
really is.
yeah.
And they banter back and forth and they talk about what have you. And the thing about it is, as a contestant, you have to try to remember everything because you don't know what's going to come up. And they know that. They have two people sitting there off to the side of the stage who are writing questions as these people are talking.
Hmm.
And somebody will say a wrong answer. That may be a question in the next round. Well, what answer did he give when he was asked about this? You know, so you really don't know what to pay attention to. I can't use that show to fall asleep because I'm in that show. When it comes on, when I'm watching
Yes.
it, there's no chance I'm falling asleep because I am in this show. I want to see how this turns out. It's fun, it's a funny show, and it's a great premise.
I'm telling you, Star Trek will do the trick. Yeah, because you're not going to be interested in what's going on, and it will, you know.
Well, Jerry Brown, Pollywhat's Crafter, says, when I need sleep, I start up the Trampled Underfoot podcast. Glad to be of service.
I
You know?
think that that's completely valid,
Mm-hmm.
um, because, well, hell, I put on all sorts of stuff to try to, just I put it on and you just fall asleep. Yeah, hey,
Mm-hmm.
it serves a purpose. What the heck?
That's right. Trampled only puts Steve to sleep when we start talking music. And how many of our music shows do you have on a playlist for those nights when you just can't fall asleep, Steve? Hey,
But what if we did a country music episode?
it would take 10 minutes. That's how much I know about country music. No,
We'll
maybe I
call it
know I know a little bit more than that. I went through a phase where I actually listened to country music, but not much.
we can call it the country and western episode.
Mhm. But we're talking about, I was listening to people like John Connolly and Mel Tillis and guys like that. I don't Charlie Daniels. Would you call Charlie Daniels country?
Well, he's country rock
Country
adjacent.
ish. Mm-hmm.
Country adjacent.
Mm-hmm. Country
He's
ish.
he's country, but he's got other little
Mm-hmm.
sprinklings. He's not. Yeah, he does have other little sprinklings.
Oh, Jerry, you hit it. Have you ever seen that show, How It's Made?
I think I have in the past.
Jerry says, actually, the How It's Made guy is rather soothing. I can fall asleep some days listening to that, but normally it has to be silent and dark. A cell phone charge light will keep me up. Oh, not me. I've worked graveyard shift enough to know that lights don't bother me, you know. And in fact, from the time I was 12 until in my 40s, I would fall asleep reading in bed because I have to have something to entertain my mind that I don't necessarily have to focus on. But so I would read just something, you know, and lights don't bother me. I've slept during the day too many years in the army. I've slept in some very uncomfortable places at all hours of the day and night. So lights don't bug me. Uh, it was Charlie Daniels we saw in Germany. Yes. Let's see. A question for your Google This For Me segment. Is there a difference between country and Western? Yes, there is. Were you asking or did you want us to save that for a question?
Dude, country and western. That's your answer. Is there a difference? I don't know.
Yes, there is a difference.
There's country, and then there's country and western.
Hmm. Well, Western is, you're talking like the singing cowboy,
Mm-hmm.
um, Gene Autry,
Yippee
Roy
yippee ki yo!
Rogers.
Yeah,
Yes, that's Western. And then country is like your Tammy Wynette and Mel Tillis and um, um, oh come on, Hank Williams Senior.
yeah.
You
It's
know,
more to do with, I guess you'd call it that Appalachian going all the way down into the
hmm
South, just Eastern.
Mm,
right? And then
well,
Western would be more,
southeastern, yeah.
and then the western part of the country, right?
Hmm.
It would be that
Well, the
singing.
the old west, yeah, kind
Yeah,
of that old west feel,
yeah.
you know. Yeah, SDM, and a lot of people jumping on it. Um, as in the aforementioned Blues Brothers, we play both kinds of music, country and western. Yep. And they did. They'd played Stand By Your Man, and they played the theme from Rawhide. Move 'em on, hit 'em up, move 'em
That
on,
would
hit 'em
be a
up,
nice.
Rawhide.
That would be a nice explanation for western.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Ride 'em in, cut 'em out, ride 'em in.
yeah, that makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, well, we never did get to your topic.
And it fits with western.
Okay, you wanna bring it up now, or
It's probably going to be a downer.
okay, well
I mean,
then
we'll ask. This is a
you
screwed. Okay, so we'll ask the audience.
okay.
We have a few people here. This is a screwed up thing. I'll just explain. Do you want to hear it or no? It's whatever your preference is. It has to do with an old west story, but it's really screwed up. And the reason I got in came across it was because doing genealogy, I control my cousin's thing, and in one of her matches, there's a branch that I found this story in. I don't know if it connects to her or not directly. Well, it doesn't connect to her directly, but it's a screwed up old west story where there's murder and all sorts of craziness. So it's up to you.
What
Yes for yes, no for no.
okay.
We'll see.
Okay. Steve says Western music has a bluegrass background and country has a gospel background. I can see the gospel background in country. I really can. Um, but bluegrass, if you listen to bluegrass, then you get into some heavy Celtic music, traditional Irish music.
Mhm.
You can see where bluegrass came from.
But bluegrass is Appalachian.
It is, but that's who settled the Appalachians.
Well, but no, what I'm saying is that Steve said Western music has a bluegrass background. Well, I guess you could still
Mhm.
argue that.
Yeah,
I think it's I think it's maybe like a little bit of
it is
all of
a it
it.
is a it is a lot of that. It is a lot of a melting pot,
Yeah, yeah.
kind of a thing. But
So how many people do we have saying yes or no? Is
well, we
there any
just have
consensus?
so far. Rick says now you have to talk about it,
Okay.
and Jerry says yes, sounds perfectly fine for the era. Well,
Okay.
go for it.
All right. So I ran across this. This is screwed up. I'm gonna pull it up right now. Okay, so this has to do with somewheres out in Colorado in the 1860s. So apparently this comes from, well, actually I'm going to pull it up so you can see it, so I can give it more of a thing to it. So you see this?
Mm-hmm.
Espinoza grandson explains murders. This is Jose Dominguez right here. If you can
Okay.
if you can kind of see him with the newspaper. And this is a newspaper from the 1960s, 1967. And this is the home where Jose built, and
Okay.
he himself was a had criminal activities back in the old days. And in this actual article, he's 92 years old.
Oh
And
wow.
if you look, old Jose there
Mm-hmm.
has his old style. This is back in 67 or something. His old style vehicle, which he stopped using at the time of this article.
Mm-hmm.
So the story, let me just stop. So just so you can see that there's a background to it. So his great grandfather, or grandfather, great grandfather, one of the two, were called the Espinosas, and they
Mm-hmm.
lived out in the middle, somewhere in Colorado, before Colorado was, a great big, population. And they were two brothers living with their wives in the house that they lived in,
Mm-hmm.
and they were farmers and such. And they came back from a long line of early settlers into the area from Spanish colonial times that went up and settled the areas in little sporadic. So they have a history. There's a whole story plotted out, or genealogy plotted out with them. But in the 1860s, one evening, a knock came on the door, and the both men brothers came up to the door and saw that it was two guys that were hungry and begging for help if they could have some food. And so the Espinosas thought about it and said they can't turn someone away when they're hungry. So they opened up the door, let them in, and they gave them to eat. In the moment of opportunity where it was presented, the two men that were allowed in got the better of the two Espinosa brothers, tied them up, and proceeded to commit rape
Mhm.
on their wives. One thing led to another, and they left. And they vowed to kill as many white men as they could come across until they found those two and proceeded to punish them. This is all written in the article. And so they began their trek across Colorado,
Mhm.
killing over 60 people until
Jeez.
they were, go ahead,
I said, geez.
60 people because they did that to their women.
Mhm.
They went cross country, and it was put out in the papers, and it just got more and more violent. I mean, heads chopped off, put in gullies, all sorts of insanity. They went back to back. Now you have to understand, I was and I'll wrap up the story. I came across this looking for connections with my cousin to see if I could find. There's no direct connection, but there is a long distance connection. I just haven't found it to this, and I don't know what branch of
Mhm.
that person's tree. But when I was looking in that tree to find some sort of name connection, I saw a picture and that article, and I went in to look because curiosity killed the cat. When I read that,
Mhm.
my jaw dropped because it's such a old west story and a crazy story. um so I copied the thing and I put it to the side. I was going to show Mark later, but then I thought, you know what, this will make a good but it's macabre. So
Mhm.
anyhow, long story short, they finally caught up to them, killed them both, and there was a reward on their heads. The guy that did the capture, one of them at least, had a reward coming to him that the state or the federales or
Mhm.
whoever was in charge of that never paid him until 25 years later. He got some of the reward money
Mhm.
for some reason or another. It was a huge mess. People dead left and right due to vengeance from this act. The only thing I don't know is if they ever did catch up to the actual guys that did the original um, act.
Mhm.
Um, their descendants come down the pike to this Jose Domingo, or Dominguez, I'm sorry,
Mhm.
that was still living in Colorado. And he himself did some criminality stuff like holding up station, train
Stagecoaches and trains and stuff. Yeah.
stuff like that. So he did a little bit of that. So all these people, these are people from back in the day and stuff. So at 92 years old in 1969, it would have placed him sometime. He would have been a grandson of these Espinosa people.
Mhm.
So that's the story. I thought it was insane.
So they never caught the two guys that
I don't know.
raped the women.
I don't know that
Okay,
part
but they
because
themselves did finally get caught.
they got caught and killed. And
Okay.
and they wrote poems. Like these two guys went crazy because they actually performed the act. The people that they invited in, the two guys they performed the act in front of them
Oh, geez.
while their loved ones were there. This
Mhm.
happened in like the mid 1860s, so it was like at the height of Civil War and such, and this and that. So you could imagine so just the whole story is insanity, dude.
Big time.
Yeah.
big
Did,
time.
did you guys expect that for a story? And
Well, vigilante justice. I mean, we were talked a little bit about this before you pushed the button. Vigilante justice was basically the only law there was. You know.
but there's a couple of things that lingered that
Hmm.
I haven't sat in, but I have pondered slightly. Number one, the equation. There's two guys that came in that happened to
Hmm.
be white in the category of white. And so because of this act, their hatred turned to anybody that's white, let's kill them.
Yeah. But then again, we don't know their backstory. We don't know what. I seriously doubt this was their first run in with white people. You
They
know,
were
this
they
may
were
be the one that just drove them over the edge.
it could have been something to that effect. They were partly of Indian heritage,
Hmm.
um, as such is the case in the United States for the most
Hmm.
part. So they had a background of they have a family tree, so you could
Sure.
um, perhaps they had other run-ins like you're
Yeah.
saying, and they had
Well,
a predisposed thing, but
yeah.
it's still
Well,
you
make no mistake.
understand,
I'm
right?
not excusing anything. I'm not, sympathizing with them or excusing anything. But knowing the climate of the time, I seriously doubt that that was their first bad experience with people, you know,
Yeah,
um, because it was a different time, it was a different mindset, and it was just things we wouldn't think of saying today were just commonplace back then.
they
And
must be. They must have. We don't know, but we're assuming it.
mhm,
They must have had previous harboring of
yeah,
anger
mhm,
against white people as a
yeah,
whole. But my point is that, well, we don't know the prior,
no,
but the
we don't.
point is that that moment
Mhm,
they made a judgment call without a court and jury
mhm.
that they were going to kill any
Yeah, until
white
they found the
person.
ones who actually did it.
Right. So that judgment call,
Yeah.
and who knows what happened? Because remember, we're saying because they according to the article, and there's a book written about it too.
Mhm,
I mean, there's I'm sure that more can be found because this is like one of the old west thing
mhm.
stories. Um, I'm sure just if you were to slip your slippers on and imagine you're hogtied and you're seeing what you're seeing,
Mhm.
it's going to screw up your head in
Oh,
all
no
sorts of
doubt.
ways.
Their faces would have been embedded in my brain for sure.
But
Mhm.
there's a difference between it's the same mistake that to in 2022, and I can't excuse or confirm or agree to anything. This is a situation that's, but in 2022, we see the same thing in people's judgment when if one person does one dumb or bad thing and they happen to qualify within a category,
Mhm. That whole category is therefore evil.
right? Because
Yeah.
it's the easiest is it's the and trauma can also cause, but it's the easiest way out. So if one person of whatever origin does one thing, you can easily categorize and say, oh well, that look, that's obvious. And it's something and some people would argue, well, of course it's obvious, and double down on it, but it's not obvious to me because and it's very hard because we're all human and we're going to end up
Yeah.
doing
Well,
stuff like
that's it. People are people.
well, people are people. That's the thing. So there's a difference between the individual
Mhm.
and a group. The individual is responsible for their personal individual acts.
Right.
I'm not responsible for somebody in Miami that
Mhm.
looks like me, let's say, from my particular background, let's say, that might happen to have robbed a train station or a 7-Eleven
Well,
across the way. I have nothing to do with that dude, even though we may share the same hair color, maybe we have the same beard variations, the
Right.
same type of, I have nothing to do with that dude. In fact, I may not even think like the well, positively, I'm not gonna. I wouldn't think like the same person or have the same emotional balance
Right.
and stuff. But the simplest thing to do for anybody else is, oh, you're all a bunch of sinners. You're. It's kind of like
Yeah.
Inquisition level stuff.
Yeah.
So it made me think in terms of that kind of stuff. Like they went hog wild.
Yeah. Well, there's a difference between vigilante justice, which is not justice, let's be clear, and going off the deep end and just becoming serial killers, Um, and regardless of the motivation, regardless of the motivation. I
Check this out.
mean, go ahead.
A little clip from it.
Hmm.
After they had eaten, the men lingered for a while. At the first opportunity, they jumped the Espinoza brothers, bound and gagged them, and, in the presence of all, did the deed on the
Hmm.
two women. Dominguez, which is the grandson,
Hmm.
said that when the Espinoza brothers were united, they vowed to kill every gringo,
Hmm.
derogatory in caps, derogatory Spanish word for an English speaking person,
Hmm.
until they caught up with the pair they wanted. The Espinoza brothers were credited with at least 32 murders before they,
32. Okay.
yeah, in turn were shot. It was a group of miners headed by Captain John McCannon of California, Glutch Slaughter. I don't know what in the Fort Gardland. I don't know what the heck this is because it's a clipping and it's kind of screwed up and stuff. But long story short,
So it was another vigilante team, a
yeah,
group of miners that ran them down and got them.
they got him. And so
Wow.
one of the Espinosas was called Vivian,
Mhm.
uh, and so the Vivian Espinosa, the more bitter, tracked them to their hideout. I don't know, understand what whether and ever went to New Mexico. Tobin cut their heads off. And this is a pretty brutal thing, but since the article is kind of like a little bit screwed up there with the way it was copied, but long story short, it's insanity.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
freaking insanity, dude. Yeah,
lawlessness in the 1800s. I mean, when there is no law, we were talking about that, whether it was a territory or not. When there is no law, people take the law in their own hands, you know? And I mean, wow. Thank
yeah.
God we were born when we was born.
And this Mr. Dominguez in 1967, I want to say
Hmm.
67. This Dominguez in 1967, which is what, like 50 some odd years ago,
Hmm.
is recalling at the age of 92
Hmm.
the story that was passed down to him from his grandmother, or wait, Dominguez grandson of the notorious bandit Vivian
Okay.
Espinosa. So it was the
Okay.
grandson. So
Yeah, that
one of
was
his grandparents.
so that was 55 years ago. He was 96. So we
Unbelievable.
can safely say that he has assumed room temperature since then.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And that's the grandson.
Hmm.
So let's see
But
what people say about. Well, go ahead.
you also have to balance that out with family folklore. And remember, you and I had a discussion about this because I was told a lot of things about my great 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 grandfather that just simply were not true. Where those stories came from, I still have no idea.
Yeah,
But things get changed and morphed around. And, you know, he did have a brother named James. The story went that David, my grandfather, and James were working the gold fields in California, and James died of cholera. And it sent David a little bit off his nut. He said, to hell with this California thing, and jumped on a ship in San Francisco
yeah,
and was shipwrecked off the coast of Mexico. made it ashore, him and some other people, and he just walked back to Missouri. Turns out it never happened. His brother did die, but he died. They never went and worked the gold fields in California. His brother died in a Mississippi riverboat accident, nowhere near California. So, but family folklore, where that story came from, I was raised with that story, only to find out it never happened.
No, but mind you, that this particular scenario,
Mm-hmm.
he's recounting it in that article.
Right.
But there are other
Now,
there there are at the time, like there's an unfolding that was
mhm.
put out in the press at the, like it was a thing at the time.
Right.
It's
That's
just that this is a
that.
paper from 67.
Right. That's a little bit different if there are other sources that say, oh, yeah, I mean, yeah, these
Yeah,
guys were credited with these killings and those killings and all the other, then that's a little bit different. But
yeah, I mean, there this is an event that happened that was
mhm.
actually put out in the press, but without without throughout, as time goes on, it's very difficult, if especially if like family stuff, if they didn't write it down, these are things that weren't
Yeah,
necessarily reported in the paper, and we
sure,
would lose track of it.
sure,
Yeah.
sure. And it just also depends on, the place and the laws of the time. Because, like, for instance,
Yeah.
my four times great grandfather, he passed away somewhere in Missouri. And when he died, it wasn't required that you report death. We don't know where he's buried. We don't know when he died
Yeah.
because there are no death records from back then. So God only knows. I mean, they may have been planting corn over his grave for the last 100 years. We just
And
have no way of
nobody's,
knowing.
yeah, nobody's any more the
Mhm.
wiser.
Exactly.
So are
So,
there any responses to this whole?
oh, there's a whole bunch of stuff over here. Rick French says it might have been a form of insanity. There are reported cases of insanity from lead poisoning and other strange exposures. Yeah, yeah.
Which one? Who, from the Dominguez, or from the Espinosas, or from the two guys that did
Well,
the
in any or all of them. I mean, the guys that went on the killing spree. I mean, God only knows.
Well, I mean, there's a direct connection
Hmm.
that you can tie to it being the 1860s, um, and seeing what they saw when they opened their doors to their home, and these
Hmm.
two took that. So you could make the look. One thing is to kill the two people that did it, which is, you're still killing, but dude, they went after your wives in front of you, did that.
Hmm.
That's one thing. But another thing is to go hog wild across the state or
Hmm.
territory
Yeah.
and butchering people left and right,
Hmm.
because you can't. I guess they went crazy, like he's saying.
That's
I think
possible.
they went crazy because it's not reasonable to kill everyone.
Nope. Why did you kill everyone in the house? Well, they was home. Yeah.
It's not
J-
reasonable.
Jim Dockeroll. So Eloy comes from a line of serial killers?
It's funny because so the reason I ended up, so I just as might, it wasn't through my connection on the thing, it was through my cousin. And remember, we share the same paternal line, but she shares a maternal line. I don't have that link to that person, so maybe it's on her maternal, or maybe I don't have that same chunks of DNA that came down. But the point is, I might as well as have looked for a story in any number of, like, I could find stories. That's one of the things. Since our seed is spread everywhere, we could find people in Canada. Like, I have Canada link. I'm sure if I haven't delved in it, but I have people in Canada, in terms of this DNA distribution, that
Hmm.
have a connection to you. It's just that it's so long ago, you don't know what the hell, and you might trample over, no pun intended, some stories that are worth telling. But this was obviously old west,
Well, that
related.
that beard gets any grayer, you might start looking like Greg. So I'd watch it.
Well, I mean,
Get you some just for men. If you start craving Slurpees, start looking for that DNA.
yeah.
Oh yeah, now distancing himself from his bad DNA relatives.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to make that connection. I'm sure in the long lens of history, there's people that have done all sorts of crazy stuff that we
see,
are related to.
see now there's an idea. Everybody has this grandiose idea. You've run across this. People are always trying to prove that they're somehow connected with royalty,
Yeah.
right? And everybody wants to be connected with somebody famous or somebody, you know, super, some, William the Conqueror or, King Edward or whoever.
Yeah.
How about a genealogy service where their sole focus is to link you to some of the really rotten people through history?
That's a good idea.
You know what? Your second cousin to Lizzie Borden. Charles Manson is your great uncle or something like that. How about,
Yeah.
just let's link. Yes, Ivan the Terrible is in your family tree.
I like that. I like that idea because you know what? There's already a service. It's called
Hmm.
genie.com or whatever. It's a part of myheritage.com. And if you type in, it says, see how you're connected to such a person. So you can
Hmm.
literally, all you have to do is upload your tree. And once somebody in your tree connects to the bigger tree,
Hmm.
you can now proceed to make connections. But here's the thing, um, you would have more connections. All they require is one. And any connection to any royalty is through that one ancestor. So in reality, it's
Hmm.
so distant that it doesn't. But there's people that are doing it to see how many
Yeah.
people in the past. So there's
and
that.
and well, and there are people that are doing that with with celebrities that they're not even related to. In one of our audio podcasts, and I don't remember which one, I went through, and I don't have it on this computer, it's on my old computer. Somebody did the genealogy and checked, and sure enough, Stevie Ray Vaughan and Jimi Hendrix were seventh cousins.
Yeah.
So they were related.
Yeah, because here's the thing. So I'll try to be concise with this here. So if you take myself as an example, and you can take anybody as an example, but I know my thing. If you take me here in Miami now, the 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 um the DNA that came to me to create me here came from my mom and dad. But if you go back in time, you're gonna look at a place where someone in that time, that seed that came down to me also went up to any other place,
Oh yeah,
be it
all over.
anywhere. It could have gone to Germany, Holland,
Hmm.
specifically. So as an example, I have people that have people from Holland in their tree.
Hmm.
And why is that? Well, in the 1600s, Spain controlled that area, and
Hmm.
people actually lived in that area and especially a lot of Jewish people also went there to avoid Inquisition and this, and that, and
Hmm.
persecutions and this, and that. So they went there, but then they got kicked out from there or left there willingly and went other places. And so it starts to multiply. So you will have ancestors literally anywhere that you can possibly frickin' imagine.
Yeah,
It just simply is that way.
yeah,
But of course, now we're talking something a little bit more distant. It's not like it's your
yeah.
brother or sister,
No,
you know.
no,
But
obviously,
but they
obviously.
do have that a little piece of, maybe that little piece that you both share is that murdering piece, you
Yeah,
know,
you
like
never know.
Corexo desires.
Yeah, just got to be careful of the silly straw chromosome.
I thought it was cool. I thought it was cool because it's an Old West story. I don't know
Mhm.
that it fit within the context of what we were talking about, but I thought it was so savage
Yeah,
on so many levels.
yeah, it
Yeah,
is. It is frontier justice, man.
yeah,
Frontier justice.
yeah.
So, and it took a group of miners to track them down and stop them. Jeez. Well,
I mean, what do you
uh,
do after that? How do you calm the your wives? It's such an insult. It's such a trauma. It's such a
real easy. You don't. You
right.
don't.
You go. you go about the business of getting
Mm-hmm.
even.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And that was the thing about self-reliance back then. There was nobody else to rely on. There was nobody else to rely on. I mean, but that goes back centuries before that. I mean, if you were working your way across the plains and your wagon broke down and you were too dumb or too lazy to fix it, that's just where you stayed because there was no AAA that you could call to come fix your wagon.
Yeah, you're there and that's it.
Yeah, you don't think people headed out for Tulsa, Oklahoma on purpose, do you? you know, it just that's where you end up. And
That's
you
crazy.
you build a house with the best that you can, and or you just didn't survive.
Yeah,
You know?
it's insane. Well, the last thing about it is that we're looking at a story in this particular case from the grandson in
Mm-hmm.
1967 recounting something from 1860,
Yeah, I mean,
and we're revisiting it here now. But this is actually the real life. Like, there's an actual tree on
mm-hmm.
Ancestry from a lady that built her tree, um, and these are her ancestors
Yeah,
directly. So it's
yeah,
kind of like, whoa,
yeah.
you know? Yeah. It's like, wow. Like, I don't have anything like that I can see within my recent. I mean, I have my own story, my family stories, but that is a killing spree.
Yeah.
I mean, to have that in your, like, imagine if you're the direct of one of these, like Charles Manson, like you said, if he's your
Mm-hmm.
uncle, damn,
Yeah,
that's a kicker.
yeah. Howdy, Uncle Chuck. What's that on your forehead? You know, Mm-mm. Doesn't work.
Yeah,
Doesn't work.
yeah.
All right, we better land the plane. We've been on 2 hours.
All right. Well, we hope you enjoyed it. It was pleasant, and then we went into a murdering spree with hatchet jobs to the left and hatchet jobs to the right.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I thought it was entertaining, so I hope you did too. But either way, we talk all sorts of stuff here. We want to thank you for coming out and hanging with us, and we wish you a great week. Happy Thanksgiving for those that are going to have that in a couple of days. Which we talked about that earlier before. We could talk about that. We should have talked about that. But long story short, turkeys and everything seems so nice when you go to the store, gobble gobble. But it must have been a brutal existence back then. But we won't touch on that. But it's another area we could totally go down because everything is so, like, Halloween used to be about like the dead rising, and although we do that, but there's a cutesy angle to it so that it's purchaser friendly. Now
Yeah,
it's all.
yeah. It's all
It's
benign. Yeah.
Yeah, everything has been turned into like a nice little puppy dog when in real. But
Mm-hmm.
anyways, we won't touch on that. I want to I want to thank you. It's easy to say that from the comfort of our internet. I want
Mm-hmm.
to thank you guys for hanging with us. We have a site over on Trampled Underfoot. Should I have?
Yeah,
We
go
do have
ahead.
trampledunderfootpodcast.com. You can catch our past episodes there by pressing the Wayback Machine button. And we also have a
Facebook page that I am getting ready to post a link to that video from Originalos. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's called Before Cheap Junk. It's a 3-minute cartoon that kind of dovetails into our discussion about why do we settle for mediocrity? Why do we continue to play the game? We continue to drink the Kool-Aid and we blame them for it. So check that out over on our Facebook page. Steve has kindly put the link to our Facebook page over there in the chat. There's also a link down in the description. Check out the video, leave us a show suggestion, give us a thumbs up, or just say hiya.
All right. Peace, guys. There might be an after show. Peace.
All right. Peace. Take care.